I am on the committee that selects members to be inducted into the Hall of Distinction, and I am absolutely ecstatic that we've made such wonderful choices over the years, but especially tonight. Rino Patti, as you know, is one of the inductees tonight, was my employing dean. He was the dean when I became the associate dean, and I had an absolutely magnificent experience working with him. So to have seen history unfold like that, I think is true blessing. I've also observed it other times, other very renowned members of the faculty at USC with whom I worked, Barbara Solomon, John Milner.
This is one of the most significant social work recognition events, not only in California, but probably in the country. The 80-plus inductees we've had in this Hall of Distinction are just really incredible social workers. So I always come to this. It's so inspirational to me, and I always invite everybody I can think of. And once they've been here and they've gone through the whole program and learned about these wonderful social workers, they come back. They really are truly inspired by this event. So I love coming here.
Hall of Distinction is a wonderful, wonderful way to honor the leaders in our profession who don't always get the honoring that they should have. But in particular, tonight I'm here to talk a little bit about a mentor of mine, Celeste Strack Kaplan, who I'm just thrilled is being, do you call it inducted, honored into the Hall of Distinction.
Gosh, I'm here for three people because I know three people. One, Connie Lopez, who has just been a mentor. She's been absolutely wonderful. I've known her for many, many years. And then I'm also here for Rino Patti because Rino, he was the dean after I was in school there, but Rino has always been fabulous and he's always been such a mentor. And then for Terry deCrescenzo. And I'm actually sitting with Terry's table. So it's just meaningful that it's this opportunity to celebrate these folks who have been stalwarts in the profession. And so it's just an honor to be part of the celebration for them.
Well, I'm here representing Cal State Los Angeles, the School of Social Work. I'm very proud to do so. And I love coming here because it's always an inspirational event. When I see just my fellow social workers and the awesome work that they have done in their lives, it really is an inspiration to me to keep going. And I love seeing all my good friends and colleagues that I've worked with over the years in NASW and in other capacities at the universities. So it's great fun. I love this event.
I think I've been a social worker for almost 40 years, and you are honoring some of the best mentors I've ever had. So Celeste Kaplan and Rino Patti and Margarita Mendez, these are all people who made a big difference in my career, and I wanted to be here to kind of be part of recognizing them, so it's great.
As we get started tonight, I wanted to welcome everyone to the Hall of Distinction event. My name is Colleen Friend, and I am actually from Cal State LA, and I'm the director of the Child Abuse and Family Violence Institute there, and I also am the chair of the Social Work Hall of Distinction Committee. And so I want to welcome everyone tonight to this wonderful event as I circulate in the room and I see so many people finding people that they haven't seen in a while. I know it's just a wonderful opportunity to reconnect as we social workers do so well. So with that, I'd like to begin my formal remarks here. And I want to welcome all our honorees tonight, their families, and all of you to the 10th Annual Hall of Distinction event. Thank you. Okay. So this evening has been set aside to recognize and honor 6 leaders of the social work profession who have established themselves as significant contributors to social welfare in California and pioneers in their respective areas of practice. The Social Work Hall of Distinction was created and has its own history about 10 years ago. It was a group of social workers led by Jim Carles. And he had the idea that he really wanted to honor social workers for their extraordinary accomplishments that weren't otherwise recognized. So he brought this idea to Dean Marilyn Flynn at the USC School of Social Work. And he talked her into it, and she bought it. And so we had a home in the social work archives, also at USC School of Social Work. And thus, we were established in 2002, so it really is our 10th anniversary. So tonight, as we celebrate the contributions of our 6 inductees, we have to also tip our hats to the committee, because it's actually the committee that makes the selection. And every year I say that, you know, this year's class was selected from the largest group of nominees that we've ever had, and that's the truth. And the truth is that our pool of nominees keeps getting bigger and bigger because all of you are submitting more nominations, and we want to encourage you to do that. And even though you make our job very hard, because it is hard to select the individuals that are going to get inducted, we also carry over people and consider them in future years. So I want to encourage each one of you to make a nomination next year. Make our job harder. Go ahead, do it, because that's what we're about. So, our committee is composed of social workers from the range of California. We have social workers from Chino all the way to San Diego, and they're a very hard-working bunch of social workers who get together once a month on the phone for about 35 minutes to 45 minutes, and we make our various plans, and it culminates in this night's activities. So some of our members you're going to see coming up to the podium speaking about the inductees, but some of them you may not meet. So I wanted to give them some special recognition here from the podium. And if I might ask them to stand when I call their names, and if you might hold your applause, because I'm also trying to get through this hopefully in a tight timeline. So I wanted to make sure that our first person, unfortunately, the very last minute, Suzanne Dworak-Peck, who many of you know, was unable to come tonight. So Suzanne is not here, and she's an ambassador with the International Federation of Social Workers, but she really worked hard on the event and also sponsors the videotaping of the event and is a sponsor of the event, and we want to recognize that. Next, I'd like to recognize Joe Nunn. Dr. Nunn, please stand. Joe is the retired Vice Chair and Director Emeriti of Field Education at the UCLA Department of Social Welfare. And next we have Jan Lee Wong. Jan Lee, where are you? Everybody knows who Jan Lee is. Executive Director of NASW of California. And we have Frances Capel, who is the Associate Dean Emerita at the USC School of Social Work, Dr. Capel. And we have, is Anita Harbert here? I'm pretty sure you were going to be here, maybe at the last minute. She may be joining us in progress. Dr. Harbert was the former director of San Diego State University School of Social Work. So thank you, and want to recognize those committee members. Thank you for doing that. The next point of business is we want to commend our sponsors for the night's event. We have 12 sponsors and someone I want to add on at the very end. So I'd ask you to also hold your applause on this because I want to list them. thank them for their contributions. Each one of them has sent a representative, and we're very appreciative of their sponsoring of the event. The first one is the USC School of Social Work, with special thanks to ongoing support from Dean Marilyn Flynn. Next one is the National Association of Social Workers, California chapter. Thank you, Jan Lee Wong and Cheryl Rayner, for all your hard work on today's event. Then we also want to thank California State University Los Angeles School of Social Work for being a sponsor, and I want to acknowledge Dr. Victor Manalo, who is also a council person from the city of Artesia. Our next sponsor is the California Deans and Directors School of Social Work, CAD. And we also have a sponsorship from California State University East Bay Department of Social Work. Our next sponsor is California State University Fresno Department of Social Work and California State University Stanislaus Department of Social Work. We've also had a sponsorship from Loma Linda School of Social Work, as well as San Jose State University School of Social Work. And of course, we have UCLA Department of Social Welfare, and there's a number of people here from that school, as well as the UC Berkeley School of Social Welfare. Again, Suzanne Dvorak-Peck is a sponsor of tonight's events. Although she isn't with us tonight, we acknowledge her contribution. And I also want to say that the flowers on the table, as well as the candy that you hopefully will enjoy tonight, was donated by Costco. And my two MSW students, who Esther is going to thank later, were involved in gaining many of the sponsorships as well as the donations for tonight. So those are our sponsors. Thank you very much. So tonight's 6 social work inductees will be joining the already 72 inductees in the Social Work Hall of Distinction. And they are a class that has expertise from direct practice, working in the area of child abuse and neglect, through community organization, innovative program development, and also social work education. Collectively, their contributions span over 150 years. We're very proud of our inductees. I also want to introduce our MC for tonight's events. Our MC is going to be Monica White. Monica? Monica's, okay. Monica, she's going to move us into the program, and I always give Monica a big introduction. I always say, you're in for a treat, and I'm never wrong. You always are. You're in for a treat. So let me tell you a little bit more about Monica. Monica has served on the board of California Welfare Archives for over 20 years. She actually is the emerita president of the board, and she has served as the vice chair of the Hall of Distinction Committee. She received her MSW and PhD from the USC School of Social Work. She's a noted author and lecturer in the area of gerontology, and she is also an adjunct associate professor at the USC School of Social Work. So with that, take it away, Monica.
Thanks, everybody. Boy, it's just great to see you, all of you. I feel a special pride, I think, tonight with these 10 years of the Hall of Distinction, because I was president of the California Social Welfare Archives when Jim Carls came to me with this idea of having a permanent way to acknowledge our pioneers, our heroes, our leaders, past and present. And the board of the California Social Welfare Archives and I agreed that we were the perfect home for such an endeavor. So I'm just thrilled that we've been at it for 10 years. And as you see, if you look in your program, the first couple of years we were extremely ambitious. We couldn't get enough people inducted, but we learned. So, which has made our job harder, actually. But anyway, I am really honored to serve as your host this evening for this event. It's always special. I think one that increasing numbers of social workers look forward to year after year since we've been added. It's really a time, as Colleen said, to see each other again, to say hello to longtime friends, please notice that phrase, longtime friends, and to make new friends. So it's always fun and wonderful. So tonight, my job is to bring to the podium the presenters who will introduce you to the honorees, the inductees, and so you'll have a chance to hear a little bit about our awardees that we're so proud of. Truth is that we could take any one of these individuals and spend the entire evening just on one of them. But obviously we can't do that, so we're just going to scratch the surface about their accomplishments and their leadership in our field. So we have prepared a little more detailed information about each one of them in your program. I'd like to refer you to the booklet, get onto our California Social Welfare website, our Hall of Distinction website, and we also have oral histories that you can watch on YouTube. So we have tried to provide lasting kind of information about the people who are our pioneers and our leaders. So let's begin. Our first presenter tonight, you have just met, is Dr. Colleen Friend. She's the chair of the Hall of Distinction Committee and an associate professor and director, Child Abuse and Family Violence Institute at California State University, Los Angeles. Let's welcome Colleen back.
Hello again. Okay, I'm going to tell you about Helen Boardman. And although Helen Boardman was long before my time, I feel akin with her because many of the things that she set in place were things that people who work in the area of child welfare and child protection well recognize at this point in time. And when I tell you about this, you're going to be astounded to think that these things that she did in the 60s were so rash and brand new at that time. They're very well established principles now. So let me begin. So saying that Helen was a pioneer in the area of child protection is an understatement. Those who nominated Helen for this honor were very young social workers at the time and remember her sort of at the end of her career being a senior trainer and encouraging them and mentoring them in the various different endeavors that they were performing at the time. In gathering information about Helen's career, Esther turned to the oral history that we have at the Social Welfare Archives and looked at an interview that Helen had done way back in 1988. But actually, when Esther was looking at it and she told me about it, it was a very humble rendition of Helen Boardman's accomplishments because she characteristically described herself as part of a team and getting something together with a lot of other people. And speaking of that, she was among the very first to lobby for the creation of what we now know as multidisciplinary teams, which are sort of standard practice in child welfare and child protection. She was the first to say that social workers had to work, here, listen to this heresy, with DAs, with police officers, with doctors, with nurses. They had to work together to try to figure out what was going on in child abuse cases. This is astounding. And when she made this pronouncement, she was severely criticized by her social work colleagues who said, no, no, no. Child protection, child welfare, that belongs to social work. That's ours. And so she was a pioneer because she fought for that. And she was among the people who established the first Los Angeles Police Department and actually section that responded to child abuse with detectives that had specific expertise for the investigation of child abuse. And that was really in the forefront. In order to get more information for tonight, Esther went to Dr. Jim Kent, and many of us from Los Angeles know Jim Kent, a psychologist who has done some pioneering work himself in the area of child abuse and neglect. And Jim said that he knew Helen from his work at Children's Hospital, and that one night, Helen, in the 1970s, had brought him a child to be interviewed by Jim Kent. And she brought this child to Jim because the child had been brought to the hospital, Children's Hospital, for the third time for burns. And Helen and some of her colleagues felt that this was an intentional injury. But at that time, children could not be detained unless some adult knew or had seen that these injuries were actually intentionally inflicted by someone else. So she brought this child to Jim for an interview, and Jim was able to get the child to talk and get enough information to allow the child to be detained. Helen also worked on the laws that allowed children to be detained on exigent circumstances and also on suspicions, not just that some other adult had to have seen something happened. And speaking of that, she also was one of the architects of the mandatory child abuse reporting law in California, which came into effect in 1974. And many of us can't imagine life without that, but it was not in existence for at least the initial part of Helen's social work practice. The other things I wanted to say about Helen was that Jim Kent said that Helen belongs in the Hall of Distinction. I remember her, how about this, distinctly. In fact, she was the reason why I became so involved in child abuse. That's from Jim Kent. So we also wanted to go a little bit further, so we contacted Dr. Rollins Summit, and Rollins Summit is a retired practicing, well, formerly practicing child psychiatrist in Los Angeles, and many of us know him quite well. And Rollins said he was very happy that Helen was going to get this award. He said, this is fascinating because I did not know this. He said Helen was among the social workers who were from Denver, who realized that many times children were experiencing injuries that were due to parental infliction, and that they were very often not being treated for that, and they were going home. So they got together and wrote an article and defined child abuse in hospital practice, and they wrote it and submitted it to a social work journal. It got no traction. So Helen and her colleagues, where do you think they went? Guess where they went? They went to Henry Kemp. They said, we have a problem. We need a solution. We need you, Dr. Kemp. So Dr. Kemp and colleagues published, do you guys know it? Have you heard of this? A well-known article called The Battered Child Syndrome. When we talk about, in academia, we talk about citations. In the citation index, this one's off the chart. And everybody here is nodding their heads and they're saying, yeah, you know, this is the one that almost all child abuse articles open up with. But guess what? When Henry Kemp published this, he was also trounced by his colleagues who said, parents don't do this to their children. This is not happening. And so it took quite a while for this idea to gain, as Rollins said, some traction. So I love Rollins, he's so articulate. He said, this might be a good time to reclaim that really proud discovery for social work. Rollins went on to say, while he's speaking in the first voice, so he's saying, so he's saying, while he was the nominal founder of this organization called Mothers Anonymous, which was the forerunner of Parents Anonymous, he said that it was really Jolly, last initial K, because it is anonymous, so Jolly K, who was the parent founder of Parents Anonymous, went to Helen as the very first board member and used Helen to attract other professionals and other parents to be on the board. And as Rollins recounts, Helen was a mediator of many conflicts that developed on this sort of grassroots boards, and those of us that are familiar with grassroots organizations know that there's a lot more thin than thick. And so Helen helped Jolly K hold this organization together, even at times, in Rollins' words, when Jolly K's own devices may have brought it to an early termination. So that's what Rollins said. Rollins said, that's what comes to mind after all these years. And further in Rollins' voice, he says, "It would not be an overstatement to say that her professional and personal dedication was a vital key to the development and the survival of Parents Anonymous." So with us tonight, accepting the award on behalf of Helen Boardman, is Meryl Levine. Meryl, will you please come to the stage? Meryl is the Director of Special Initiatives at Parents Anonymous. Thank you very much, Meryl.
Thank you. Wow, that's beautiful.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, gorgeous. Well, let me make a few remarks,
yes.
and then I will take the award. We are so proud. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Meryl Levine, and I'm a proud social worker for many, many years. I'm not sure I want to tell you exactly how long, but I did graduate from Case Western Reserve University, and I'm now the Vice President of Special Initiatives at Parents Anonymous, Inc. Dr. Lisa Payan Berlin had hoped to be here this evening, but unfortunately was out of town. So she does extend her regrets. It's truly an honor, though, to be here to accept this award on behalf of Helen. And I'd like to share with you a little bit more in terms of what Helen probably would have been extremely surprised to see in the development of Parents Anonymous. And excuse me for my throat here a little bit. Helen was an extraordinary social worker, as all of you are hearing, and also a dedicated board member who really was pivotal in making Parents Anonymous grow and develop into what it is today. And we are really an innovative child abuse prevention neglect, a child abuse and neglect prevention national organization today. So we've come a very, very long way. Tonight I would like to share with you a little bit more about her role and how she played a critical part of Parents Anonymous and how it has led to hundreds of thousands of families successfully changing their lives forever through evidence-based Parents Anonymous programs nationwide, and how many of these parents have continued on to make changes with other parents, and they have given back to the organization wanting to help other parents today. So that's a really fabulous way in terms of a grassroots organization moving forward and continuing to grow. Through the extraordinary efforts of Jolly Kay, as you heard, the founding parent, she actually sought out Helen, and she really actually worked with Helen to build the board for the Parents Anonymous, what was initially Mothers Anonymous and then grew into Parents Anonymous. Fortunately for us, Helen remained on the board for many years and made major contributions in shaping the directions of the Parents Anonymous program model, and she's also played a key role in policy development. Helen was there to support Jolly Kay in 1973 when she provided groundbreaking testimony before Congress and put a human face to the complex problem of child maltreatment. Jolly Kay testified before Congress about her abusive behavior toward her child and how she had successfully turned her life around through Parents Anonymous. She was considered one of the leading experts and in terms of her personal story because she humanized more the problem of child maltreatment by focusing more on effective prevention types of strategies. This courageous testimony helped to ensure the passage of the first federal legislation to focus on prevention, the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act of 1974, better known as CAPTA today. Helen helped to write this legislation and again, as was mentioned earlier, insisted that a multidisciplinary approach must be utilized in order to protect children and prevent child abuse. Through her tireless work and support as a board member, Parents Anonymous was able to successfully launch today a national prevention network of accredited organizations that operate weekly Parents Anonymous groups free of charge for adults, children, and youth, partner with professionals, and effectively engage local communities to provide help, support, strength, and hope to families. Today we are actually the largest and oldest child abuse prevention organization dedicated to strengthening families, with a 43-year track record of providing leadership in the prevention of child maltreatment. In groups, Parents Anonymous parents give and get help by empowering each other through mutual support and shared leadership by addressing underlying emotional issues to the challenges and joys of parenting. Drug and alcohol problems, mental health, child and adolescent development, concerns related to children with special needs, positive discipline, parental roles and appropriate expectations. All of these kinds of topics are discussed in a Parents Anonymous group. And they serve, while the parents are meeting in their support group, there's also a children and youth program also happening simultaneously. And that's where the children also have the opportunity to work on their self-esteem, learn to manage their emotions, and also change their behaviors and strengthen their family relationships. Today, research demonstrates that participation in Parents Anonymous groups is associated with positive changes in child maltreatment outcomes and risk and protective factors. The most recent national outcome study, which was published in 2 peer-reviewed journals, Child Welfare and the Journal of Juvenile Justice, was conducted by the National Council on Crime and Delinquency and funded by the U.S. Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. For all of the parents who participated in the study, statistically significant reductions were found in child maltreatment outcomes and in risk factors. Because of the work of this board member, Helen, Parents Anonymous, Inc. has also played a national role in shaping the child maltreatment prevention agenda. And what has originally been from blame and shame has moved to one that emphasizes the protection of children by building on the strengths of parents, resulting in strong families that nurture and promote positive relationships with their children and youth. Helen's leadership ensured the successful expansion of Parents Anonymous programs nationwide. But before I conclude my remarks, I thought I would give you an example of one parent who has successfully turned her life around. I want to share with you the story of a parent named Tanya as an example of one family who transformed her life for the better. Tanya is the mother of 4 children, ages 13, 14, 22, and 36, and a grandmother of an 11-year-old who sought help, received support, gained strength, and found hope for her family. She was first, in 1998, she became homeless and hit rock bottom. Her addiction to crack cocaine was interfering with her ability to provide a safe and nurturing environment for her children. To the outside world, she appeared highly functioning and a supportive parent, but when she used drugs, she neglected her children. She neglected her only daughter's emotional needs over the years. When she had her 3rd and 4th children, she felt overwhelmed and unprepared to take on the daunting task of raising 2 young boys. She was faced with the most important choice of her life, her children or the drugs. She chose her children. Then the real work began. And she entered a homeless shelter. She began participating in a Parents Anonymous group. And today, she's going on 13 years in recovery. So she's really done a remarkable turnaround for her life. She's now an Alcoholics Anonymous sponsor of 6 individuals committed to recovery. So Tanya has come a long way. And I just wanted to read you a quote from her, and I will close out very shortly. She stated, I am confident that when my children grow up, they will raise their children in a safe and productive environment, free of abuse and neglect, and they will give back to their own community. Tanya is currently attending college full-time, committed to obtaining a degree in communications now. So we've seen some major success because of all of the wonderful, groundbreaking work that Helen was involved with in terms of pushing forward for Parents Anonymous. She was an exemplary social worker, concerned for people, knew how to advocate, and was totally committed to launching a national prevention movement that empowers and exemplifies the best of our profession. I want to thank everybody, and we are very, very proud to receive this award.
Thank you. I'd now like to call up Esther Gillies. She's president of the California Social Welfare Archive, a member of the Hall of Distinction Committee, and an alumna as well as retired faculty of USC School of Social Work. She will introduce our next inductee. Esther?
Thank you. My fan club in the corner. Teresa deCrescenzo has been recognized as an icon in the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community, a community for which she has been an ardent advocate and a passionate spokesperson throughout her career. Teresa and I attended the USC School of Social Work at the same time, graduating in 1978. We were in Dr. Margaret Hartford's group work class together. I remember Teresa from day one. She was a powerful presence in the classroom, forceful in her comments, strong in her convictions, and seemingly fearless in expressing opinions counter to mainstream thinking. Although I do not remember my circumstances in where we ever worked together, I do remember being impressed regularly by her passion, her ability to articulate the issues and the impact on all of the students in the classroom, including me. I again found myself in the same arena with Teresa when we served as members of the Los Angeles County Children's Planning Council. At monthly meetings, she was often one of the last members to arrive and take her seat at the large table at the front of the room. And the minute she entered the room, her presence was felt by all in the room. It was just who she was. And we all knew that regardless of the agenda for that meeting, at some point during the meeting, we would get a lesson in current status of LGBT issues in the county. Terry never left a meeting without informing, educating, and passionately advocating for the community she represented. She was one of a panel of presenters a few years ago at the USC All-School Day that was devoted to the LGBT community. Her presentation was personal and powerful as she related the obstacles she is forced to overcome in her career, including discriminatory practices that occurred even during her MSW program, issues that threatened her professional career. Her tenacity to overcome discrimination and her drive to achieve equal rights for herself as a student and later the LGBT community itself were never more apparent. Her ability to influence a group with the facts and with personal anecdotes was extremely powerful. Terry took a particular interest in the well-being of adolescents struggling with identity issues. She founded the first not-for-profit child welfare agency, Gay and Lesbian Adolescent Social Services, GLASS, which grew to include over 150 employees, an active volunteer and peer participation program, extensive community outreach including a mobile medical unit, 6 therapeutic group homes, 3 foster family programs, vocational training, program for teen mothers, and daycare services. She actively served on social services and community boards and committees, including the Executive Committee of the Interagency Council on Child Abuse and Neglect, the Advisory Committee on GLBT Issues for the Child Welfare League of America, and Leadership Development Committee of the California chapter of NASW and the Los Angeles County Children's Planning Council. The leadership characteristics I observed in Terry as a student continued throughout her professional career. Her contributions to social welfare in California have left a lasting legacy in behalf of the LGBT community. It is my pleasure to introduce one of our newest members of the Hall of Distinction, Teresa deCrescenzo.
Kind introduction. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. What a kind introduction. So I want to thank my friends and colleagues for this amazing and unexpected honor. Inductees tonight have been asked to keep our remarks brief, and it would take me a very long time to just to thank the people at my tables tonight who honor me by being here to witness this special occasion. My family, Albert and Tina deCrescenzo, thank you for being here. It means the world to me that you're here. They flew in on the red eye, and then we lost their flight number, so there was that. But here we are, Amy, Connie, Linda, Mark, Mike, Lynn, my USC classmate, Diana Hansen, and her partner and also a long-term colleague of mine, Nancy Taylor, who came in from the Napa Valley tonight. They own a home in the Napa Valley in Laguna. Why are they here? Thank you for being here tonight. My partner, Carol Cushman, who flew in from New York, and thanks to Frankenstorm, I get her for a few extra days because the flight home's been canceled. So thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for loving me so generously. Despite the large shadow cast by Betty Berzon, Jerry Habel, long-term Glass board member, whose middle name is Loyalty. Every one of you is special to me, but I have to offer a special acknowledgement to my first clinical supervisor, whom I met almost 43 years ago when I walked through the door of Las Palmas School for Girls, later the Dorothy Kirby Center. People have been coming up to me all evening saying, "Is Eva Ballo here? Oh my God, can I say hello to her?" Well, yeah, she doesn't mind when people say hello to her. Eva Ballo, thank you so much for being here tonight. And for being, please, yeah. And for being such a mentor to me. You taught me a great deal clinically, but your real wisdom for me came in your encouragement to always do the right thing, to always do work that I care about, and to never work for money. Slim chance of that. You used to say to me, as long as you have your health, the only thing that matters is doing work you know you're called to do. And I have tried to do that in the nearly 43 years that have passed since you gave me that advice. Accompanying Miss Ballo tonight is Randall Kanan Goldstein. And without you, Randy, allowing me and Miss Ballo the privilege of entering into your life when you're only 15 years old, now a mother, filmmaker, writer, none of us would be here tonight. Thank you, Randy, and all the hundreds of children who have trusted us to enter into your soft, vulnerable, psychological places. There's a well-known vignette told by Janet Leigh about the first time her 5-year-old went to school, and her teachers, in order to place her at the correct class level, gave her a box of crayons and said, "Pick out your favorite color crayon and write your name down." And the child stood there, reached for no crayon, said nothing, wrote nothing. And so they assumed that she wasn't very bright. Later she explained to her mother that she had remained mute because her favorite color crayon wasn't in the box. Well, neither was mine. Ralph Fertig said to me earlier this evening, "What a long way to have traveled from the school that treated you so badly." I was criticized for having written the contact person as my life partner. I was told that I set myself up as a defiant student. And then the late Hindi Nobler wrote an article in which she talked about the importance when working with male homosexuals of initially establishing a therapeutic alliance with them before introducing them to the notion of the unacceptability of homosexuality. And I challenged the existence of a covert agenda. And she said to Maury Hamovich, either you dismiss her from this school or she gives me a public apology for saying that. Maury, God bless you, he said, Terry's work is excellent student quality work, and I'm not throwing her out of the school because she challenged you. Thank you. That wasn't the color crayon I had in mind when I went to social work school. The first time I did the initial training ever to Los Angeles Police Department and later to LA County Sheriffs on homosexuality, cadet after cadet during the question and answer session would stand up and say, ma'am, yes, ma'am, thank you, ma'am, I find you disgusting, ma'am. Yeah, they did. I didn't know what color crayon I was supposed to use then either. When I started the first foster care program in the county for sexual minority youth, there wasn't a right colored crayon, but I did it anyway, despite opposition from the county and from the state. When I insisted that gays and lesbians be allowed to be mentors to LGBT teens, my favorite color crayon was missing then too. But today, LGBT adult youth mentoring program is one of the most important programs in the country under the sponsorship of Health and Human Services and other organizations and funders. When I said that we would need to provide transitional housing beyond age 18 to all foster youth, not just LGBT youth, I still couldn't find the right colored crayon to make that point. But today, most kids in care do stay until age 20 and beyond. I still couldn't find my favorite color crayon when I said that we ought to be allowed to adopt and foster children, and today we can get married in many states. I'm glad we lived to see that tipping point. Thank you. Well, we all see how people can triumph over adversity, but sometimes it's hard to see beyond our own frustrations. Often that colored crayon I chose wasn't there, and so I've had to color my life with other choices. I still don't have all the color crayons that I want, but I know I have all the colors that I need. I know that I will never face a challenge that's beyond my reach, and it doesn't matter that I'm afraid, despite Esther's presentation of my lack of fear. And when I need a new and different color, I'll find them, and I'll be better and stronger as a result. Thank you.
Sorry. The presentation of our next inductee will be made by two distinguished social workers, Dr. Jacqueline McCroskey, who is the John Milner Professor of Child Welfare at the USC School of Social Work, and Helen Maxwell, who is the Division Chief at Regional Administrator at the Department of Children and Family Services, West Los Angeles office. Both had the privilege of working with Celeste Kaplan, each at different points in Ms. Kaplan's career. Come on up.
Thank you. Get to be first. Okay. And it really is a privilege for me today to be here to tell you a few words about one of the most phenomenal social workers of our time. Actually, Celeste really is a leader and an innovator in community-based services. Many of the programs that we have today in unserved and underserved communities, you could see Celeste's fingerprints. Just to talk about a few of the programs that she really started was partnership building. One of her programs was our inner city church sites with the USC as a partner, El Nido Services, and the churches. Also was very active in creating programs for children who needed services that weren't there in communities such as Jordan Downs Housing Project, and really placed MSWs and LCSWs in communities that were just barren, no services. She was really instrumental in working with the county and getting child abuse services in South Central Los Angeles. Teen parenting. Most of you know that there's a number of projects now that Celeste really set the stage for and was the prototype. And that's outreach to teen parenting. Just to tell you and to get a feel for her energy. While working in Jordan Downs and discovering the need for teen parenting, Celeste, I went to her, we talked on a Friday evening. Well, Monday morning, we submitted a program to the Youth Authority that was funded and up, and is the prototype for many teen parenting programs in the community. Celeste's legacy will live on forever, and it lives on in the number of lives that she's changed in the community. I am very fortunate to have had her as a mentor. She and Annie and I shared, we felt like daughters, was her professional daughter, and I'm very grateful for all the skills and also the opportunity to work with her and to create a better Los Angeles. Her programs will live on and has become the prototype for many services.
So this is a perfect trade-off because I first met Celeste the day, her retirement party, the day of her retirement party. I was a new staff member at United Way, and she was being feted for being an agency executive, a leader at United Way, and just leaving El Nido. Celeste was absolutely the kind of person who could draw you in hello, how are you? And so about 2 weeks later, when United Way was asked if there was a volunteer who would be willing to represent United Way on a new blue ribbon task force, my boss and I suggested Celeste, and Celeste, I got to staff her during this task force. Turned out to be a pretty pivotal task force because it was the one that ended up creating the Department of Children and Family Services. It basically took the child welfare, child protection elements from the Department of Public Social Services, put it together with what was at that time the Adoption Department, and created a full-bore department. So I got to see that whole process and to benefit from her mentorship in the same way that Helen did. The year before, she had started to create something in planning for retirement, and she had several retirements and several transitions. She created something called the Los Angeles Roundtable for Children, which was about pulling people together across different sectors who shared a passion for children, so that we could educate each other, so that we could share, so that we could learn from each other. And Celeste invited me to serve on the roundtable. Then in 1984, when I went to the USC School of Social Work, and by the way, the roundtable was headquartered at the USC School of Social Work, and Celeste's office was down the hall from mine. I basically got to then work with her on a number of reports that we did. She was a pretty exacting taskmaster, but she really taught me how to write things. And we did a whole series of reports that were unique for Los Angeles and unique for California and actually the country at that time. We did the first children's budget of LA County government, and we published it in 1986. The reason that we could do that was because Celeste had formed such tight relationships with the then Chief Administrative Officer of LA County government, Richard Dixon. And Richard helped us to get access to data on the budgets of county departments that served children. Celeste used to say that budget information is probably even more secret than information about sex. And so it was quite a coup to be able to get access to all this information. Ultimately, the publication of that first children's budget led to the creation of the Children's Planning Council. Children's budget came out in 1986, and the Planning Council was created in 1991, so it took 5 years of persistence. But lots of seeds were sown in that time. We were warned that we each only get 2.5 minutes, so I'm going to speed up. Talk about a number of things about Celeste, who's very, very, very dear to me and to a number of our friends who are here tonight because they wanted to honor Celeste, and certainly to Annie and Victor and their son Alexander. But I decided to pick 5 because I figured I could do that pretty quickly. And the first one is that Celeste was a master convincer. There's an apocryphal story about how she was on the debate team. And I guess California was kind of far away from the East Coast. And the girls in California ended up studying the boys' topic. I don't know if the boys studied the girls' topic, but anyway. Celeste and her partner went to Chicago for the national championships, and after a good deal of convincing, were allowed to enter the boys' championship for the national debate team, and they won. She was incredibly passionate about whatever she was focused on, but she was really passionate about children, about the whole child, about representing the children, not about a particular agency, a particular program, a particular funding stream, a particular point of view, but how do you bring people together across all of these differences. The third thing is that she could build relationships with almost anybody. The fact that she, and those of you who knew Richard Dixon know, the fact that she and Richard Dixon became close enough to enable years of partnership was a testament to her ability to build relationships with people across the political divide, across the disciplinary, professional, et cetera, divide. She was, number 4, a student of power. And as you can see by her Communist Party background, her organizing background, her activism in the 1930s, her leadership of the national student movement, she had a lot of opportunity to learn about power. And one of the things she understood was that you don't need the same power for every question. You bring different things to the table depending on what's happening at different points in time, and you adjust your message for the people you're trying to persuade. The 5th one, as I said before, is that she was very exacting. And you had to do your homework, you had to find the data, you had to justify your conclusions, you had to write it clearly, you had to rewrite it very clearly multiple times. And if I have been able to do anything along the same lines in my career, it's because I was very fortunate to have postdoctoral fellowship with Celeste Strack Kaplan on politics and the art of getting it done. So we'd like to invite Annie up to talk a little bit about her mother and to accept the award.
Okay.
Hi, I want to thank Helen and Jacqueline for everything they said. I want to thank the California Social Welfare Archives and the Hall of Distinction Committee. I just want to say something a little bit more personal about my mother. Some of you knew her, and she was kind of larger than life. But all the qualities that Jacqueline was talking about, she brought home, and she shared with me, with my husband, with my son, Alexander, and with my friends. She made a really big difference in their lives, and I wanted to read to you 2 things that were sent to me by my closest friends. One is from Vicki Paterno, a pediatrician, and she wrote the following. Celeste Kaplan played an important part in my development from a teenager to an adult. Her daughter Annie was my college roommate, so I was lucky enough to interact with her frequently during my formative college years. It is only in retrospect that I fully appreciate what she gave me. Some of her gifts were to treat me with respect, listen attentively to what I said and how I felt without condescension. She then would give me advice and suggestions to how to deal with complicated relationships and life in general. Celeste was a person that had a lasting impact on all that surrounded her. To this day, I try to emulate her, interacting with children and young adults in the same way she treated me years ago. Another note was written to me by my oldest friend, Laura McGoffey, who is the retired superintendent of schools for Culver City. She said, "I first met Celeste, Mrs. Kaplan to me, when I was in elementary school where her daughter Annie and I became best friends. She had a great influence on my life throughout my elementary, high school, and college years. I came from a family of discord, violence, and divorce, and from parents that didn't pay attention to their children. I saw a role model of a mother who put her child first, who always cared for others, and gave me great hopes for college and advanced degrees due to her. I was able to sit at a family table for meals and discuss world news and controversial topics with people who cared about your opinion. They took me on their family vacations. I saw avid readers and the quest for knowledge and the importance of making a difference. I had discussions with Celeste where she confirmed my feelings about my home situation and gave advice that I readily took. As a result, I and my siblings moved in with my father. I graduated college and got several credentials, a master's and a doctorate, and became a superintendent of schools. I don't think I would have achieved any of that without the role models of my best friend and her mother. And that was my mother. That was my mother for our family, for my friends, and for her students and her peers and her coworkers, and she would be so honored to receive this award from her peers, and I want to thank you very much.
She's also a colleague of the inductee, Consuelo Gomes, and also Margarita Mendez, who is another inductee in former year. Dolores?
Thank you. I'm really very honored to be able to be here and to participate in the presentation and for Dr. Lopez. Most of us called her Connie. She was a great social work practitioner, social work educator, researcher, and really a strong advocate for the rights of women and children. I first met Connie way back in the 1970s. Some of you may be too young to remember that era, but I was invited to a meeting at her home by a mutual friend, and little did I know that that meeting would literally greatly affect my life. That meeting was called to develop strategy and a plan of action to challenge the admission policies of both the UCLA and USC schools of social work. It is hard to believe that at that time, only one Latino student a year was admitted to each of those schools. Times have changed, haven't they? And we're all great. And we're grateful for people like Connie who made it happen. Those activities included demonstrations, sit-ins, countless meetings with deans and faculty, but really the most effective strategy that was developed was challenging the accreditation of the schools. That really brought the attention of the schools to the problem and decided we better do something about it. Those activities resulted in the establishment of El Centro, which was the first mental health agency established in the country that provided mental health services to a Latino community. It became a model throughout the country, and many, many other groups throughout, and other states followed not only those same strategies, but also the model of the agency. Connie served on the board of El Centro for many years, pushing its development. Connie, at heart, was a social work educator and a researcher. She always pushed for very strong, very high professional standards of practice, and those of us in practice would many times roll our eyes when she insisted that we include an evaluation project in everything we did. And as most of us in practice, this was just, come on, this is just extra work. But through her efforts, we, all of us became aware of the importance of research. She also was involved in her strong commitment to social work education with a group that pushed for the establishment of the School of Social Work at Cal State LA. Her dream was that Cal State LA would become the research center for Latino social work education. And maybe that's a project in the future that we still have, to work on. But her legacy continues. She was really devoted to students. Students, women, and children, those were her priorities. It was, she was hired, her interest in research was so strong. She was hired temporarily, just for a few months, by the department, the LA County Department of Health, Health, to replace one of the social workers who was on medical leave, who's here today. And in those few months, Connie developed a research project within the health department. There was a first research project conducted by a medical social service division, and it was centered on the needs of the unmet health needs of Latino immigrants in East LA. And even in that field, she was way ahead in her interest in the needs of immigrants to this country. She was also one of the co-founders of a group we call Las Comadres. Las Comadres is a group of Latina social workers. It's an informal group that she developed and helped develop that provided support, mentoring, leadership training to social workers, Latina social workers. And as a result of those efforts, there are many, countless Latinas now in very high administrative positions, both in public and private agencies. That was one of her great, really things she loved to do. She loved mentoring people. She loved to help them. She shared her expertise. She shared her knowledge. She was really behind any effort. Any time that we asked her anything, she said, sure, we can do it. Let's do it. But also with that evaluation component, which we didn't. She also was a consultant to the LA County Department of Adoptions. She helped develop a program placing Latino children with Hispanic families. And again, it was a first in the country. So that was her commitment to children. She was also a co-founder of the Latino Social Work Network, which became also one of the first Latino organizations in social work that became a model for throughout the country. And we were very, very pleased. She was always there. She was always a friend. She was always ready to help anybody. Even after her retirement, she met informally with her favorite students, USC students of social work. They met at her home, and she really, really helped all of them. So I'm very pleased to be able to make this presentation, and her daughter, Shalini, is here to receive it. Shalini was still a baby when I first met her.
Not a baby anymore. Good evening. This is a great honor to receive this very special award on behalf of my mom. Unfortunately, my younger brother Omar could not be here today. He lives in Hawaii and couldn't make it out here for this very special event. But I can assure you he's just as proud as I am. But with me tonight is my oldest son, Vito, along with my uncle, my mother's brother, his wife, and my cousin, Patsy, my mother's niece. Thank you. I just want to say that if my mom were with us here today, she would genuinely feel the joy and gratitude to be in your company and accept this award. So again, I thank you. As children, my mom encouraged both my brother Omar and I to reach high for our dreams. In her eyes, no dream was too big. She had very high expectations for us, and we worked very hard to meet those expectations. I earned my BA degree in communication design from the Otis Art Institute. My brother earned his degree in law from Loyola. We have become successful in our lives as a result of the examples set from my mother, and we are forever appreciative. I don't have too many recollections of the many events my mom was involved in, but there are a few that remain imprinted in my mind. In the area of social justice, I remember the various meetings my parents had in our home with the United Farm Workers of America, and the many picket lines we marched in to support the farm workers. In addition, my mom mentored several teachers at our elementary schools and supported them in their rallies for higher wages. Both Omar and I were participants in those strikes. My mom was definitely an advocate for higher education. I remember on various occasions sitting in her classroom at Cal Poly Pomona and listening to her give some mesmerizing lectures in front of her students. I thought, wow, how cool to stand in front of so many people and capture an audience. I watched her mentor her students, boosting their confidence through her words of encouragement that gave them the strength to improve not only their grades, but also themselves. Even at the young age of 8 or 9 years old, I felt proud to see my mom be a mentor and care so much about her students. She provided opportunities for many in the areas of social services. I remember watching her interact with, engage, and assist many families at El Centro in East Los Angeles. Although I could not speak Spanish very well, I wasn't raised speaking it, it was fun to interact with the Latino children at El Centro, and I taught them Spanish. I taught them English, they taught me some Spanish, so that was kind of fun. And I made some new friends there. Finally, I remember the many meetings at our home with her sweet comadres, Dolores, Olga, and Sally Bell, and a few others I don't quite remember. Although I don't remember their discussions, I do remember the joy and laughter filling our home, which always made me smile. As I grew older, I watched and learned from the many ways she impacted the lives of her family, friends, colleagues, students, and even strangers. She touched the lives of my friends and their families. I began to realize that she was actually living her dream to help others, especially Latinos, gain the confidence and courage to attain their goals and earn their degrees and beyond. She was a true leader. Today, I recognize that the life I'm now living mirrors the lessons my mom taught me. I also work in the field of education, designing and writing to inspire and touch the lives of students and parents. I set high standards for my own children and try to encourage them to attain whatever goals they want out of life. This December, we are planning to serve at an orphanage in Mexico. I hope to expose my kids to many more opportunities so that they will understand the importance of assisting others and making a difference in this world, their world. My mother has also influenced the lives of her grandchildren, her mijitos and mijita, whom she is very proud of. Vito, my oldest, is in his second year at Cypress College, majoring in art. Kai, my youngest, is in 5th grade at the Pegasus School in Huntington Beach and enjoys math and athletics. His dream is to play football or baseball for USC. Omar's oldest daughter, Taylor, is in her 1st year at Hawaii Pacific University on a full scholarship, majoring in journalism. And his youngest, Zach, is in his junior year at Brea High School. His stepson, Zach, affectionately known as Big Z, is a graduate at San Francisco State with a BA in psychology. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank the Hall of Distinction Committee, Ben Cuellar, Olga Sarabia, and Dolores Rodriguez for honoring my mother. It truly means a lot to my family. Thank you.
Dean Flynn, Marilyn Flynn, received her MSW and PhD from the University of Illinois at Urbana, has held several positions of national leadership in the Council on Social Work Education, and is the founding president of the St. Louis Group, which represents all North American schools of social work in research extensive universities. She's past president of the California Association of Deans and Directors of Social Work Programs and has served as the dean of the USC School of Social Work since 1997, where her leadership has been hailed as progressive and innovative and truly advanced. Dean Flynn, we have to come up for our next inductee.
Well, this is a wonderful opportunity to me because, of course, Rino Patti preceded me as dean. And I want to say that I've served in administrative leadership positions in 2 places. One was Michigan State, one was here at USC. When I went to Michigan State, I spent the first 8 months of my tenure there opening drawers and finding things in files, finding things in the backs of drawers, finding things I didn't want to find. So it was with some trepidation that I then followed in the footsteps of Rino. And I want to report to you that I've been opening drawers for 15 and a half years now, and I still haven't found anything. So this is a first testament to his worthiness for this distinction. But it really is with very deep pleasure that I introduce to the California Social Work Hall of Distinction Dean and Professor Emeritus Rino Patti. He's truly one of the foremost academic leaders in our field. When I was trying to think of what I would say, I looked at the prepared remarks that I was handed, and I've rewritten them so many times that I actually can't read what I have here anymore. So a lot of this will come from the heart, and that will be easy. You should understand that Rino holds a unique place in higher education because he became dean at USC during a period of very profound change. These changes, I think, were probably not well understood outside of higher education, but they had enormous impacts on the structure and the status and the future of social work education. These changes were based on the fact that we had rapidly increasing expectations for scholarship and research, and most of social work itself as a field had been oriented toward very good practice, but not toward the full incorporation of sophisticated quantitative methods and other measures that were used in the social sciences. Dr. Patti came to USC at a time when these pressures on social work as a field and on our school in particular were intense. And one of his greatest contributions was to prepare our entire faculty and to help this school, which I now lead, to enter the 21st century. He laid the foundations for research and understanding of advanced practice in a way that was truly exceptional. But if it had only been limited to our school, then we would have simply said that he was a great dean, we would have been grateful, and we would have all progressed. But in fact, what he did was to bring this vision of the place of social work research and its essential nature for the survival of our field in higher education. He brought this to the entire social work community. And he brought it in 2 or 3 ways. Locally, he formed a unique collaboration with the Department of Children and Family Services and other schools of social work, which became known as the Inter-University Consortium. He did this with a view toward transforming social welfare practice in a collaboration between research, scholars, and the major child welfare institution in the United States. He set a model in this kind of relationship that subsequently was adopted by the California Educational Social Work Consortium, and both of these very influential groups persist today. The second thing he did was sort of an insurrection, I believe. Probably at the time, I don't know if he would see it as an insurrection, but a lot of other people did. And that is, he brought together leading deans from across the country and helped to organize the first National Association of Deans and Directors of Schools of Social Work. And the purpose of this was really to improve the quality of leadership in social work education. It went well beyond and greatly improved the nature of the dialogue throughout social work leadership. And again, this National Association exists today. He also was the founding board president of the Institute for the Advancement of Social Work Research in Washington. And what you need to understand about that group was that social work had a very tenuous presence in the research community. Of course, we had lobbyists, we had groups, we had formal organizations, but we had really, in order again for the survival and for our presence and for our future leadership in the national research environment, this organization made it possible to represent social work research, to make connections in Congress and with major federal institutions. So he began with our school, our community of Los Angeles, and on the national platform in all these domains. He strengthened academic leadership. He gave social work a presence that it actually had not enjoyed previously. He brought people together who had not, powerful people together, who had not previously worked together. And he actually laid the foundations, I truly believe, for all of us and for our success in advancing research in social work. It's also true that he himself was a scholar, and he wrote or he was author or editor of 5 books. And I only want to comment on these books, which are, I think, identified in your program. It was my experience coming through my master's program and in doctoral education and so on, that management and administration in social work were odd. Everybody knew that social workers ran things, but it was kind of a family secret. In other words, you weren't supposed to exactly prepare for this. You were supposed to fall into it, and then you were supposed to be good at it because you were a social worker. And the answer in the profession to this kind of long-held belief was that if you didn't really know how to do this very well, you could kind of get a book from business administration and you could read it at night and then maybe you could do better. I'm making light of this, but actually I think Rino would probably agree that this was true. He was one of the pioneers in bringing really important concepts in business, but from other domains in social science, and writing about social work administration and management, so that it made this field not only an acceptable form of practice, but it brought some of the most relevant ideas to social work practice in these fields that nobody had really done before. And I think everybody in this particular area, which is my own, is profoundly grateful to him. Now, none of this is in my script, but I apologize to those who wrote it. This is really what I feel about him, and with that, Rino, I think I'm done.
Now I know why I feel so tired. I've been retired for 10 years. I'm still catching up. I have a crib sheet here for senior momentitis, which I'm more and more prone to these days. I first of all want to thank Colleen and Esther and the Social Welfare Archives, and particularly the committee that chose me for this induction and this high honor. Francis Capel, who was a sidekick of mine for most of my years as a deanship, used to press me for raises from time to time. And in those days, before Maryland brought wealth to the School of Social Work, those raises were hard to come by, Francis, you'll agree. Well, she served on the committee that chose me among the other distinguished for this high honor, and Francis, the raise is on its way. I want to just also give a call out to Frances Feldman, who passed away some few years ago. How many of you know Frances or know about her? Yeah, well, yeah. Frances had an incredibly wide footprint every place she went: the School of Social Work, Los Angeles Community, state of California. One of the things that you may not all recognize is that she was really the wellspring for the archives. She's the one that made it happen. I can remember, 1988 or so, seeing she and Ruth Britton, you remember Ruth? She and Ruth Britton being a committee of two and basically levitating the social welfare archives on their backs. So Frances, thank you for all of this that's now resulted in this wonderful organization. Finally, let me just say a word about my family, and particularly my wife, Nadine. 50 years, partner and friend. Been a long... It's been a long slog, but a good one. And I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for her. So just a few comments about my personal reaction to this honor. As a college student in the mid-1950s at San Diego State University, thank God for San Diego State, I wouldn't be here today. I paid $25 a semester to go to San Diego State. Can you imagine that? In the 50s at San Diego State as a student, I learned about and became deeply disturbed about all the social injustices that one found. It was sort of like opening my eyes to all the stuff that was going on around me that wasn't right somehow. I was predisposed to be for the underdog, even before I got to San Diego State, having grown up in a very difficult family situation, being of immigrant roots, and having had a liberal upbringing. So being sympathetic to the underdogs was kind of natural for me. And it made me feel as though, having learned about all of these problems and injustices that were afoot, that I somehow should play a role in building policies and programs that would address these and related issues. This was the mid-50s, and there were, at the time, just the beginning stirrings of what would eventually find expression in the New Frontier, the Great Society, the various social movements that would bring greater equality for people of color, women, sexual minorities. As luck would have it, I was on the cusp of that great transformation. Through college, I studied history and sociology and other social sciences, but until I was a senior, it wasn't clear to me what I would do with all this passion for social justice. I had no parental home to go back to, so I had to think practically about what I would do. What line of work could one go into to pursue ideals and have at least a decent living? About that time, I met a young sociology professor, a person who had been a social worker named Irv Tibor. I don't know how many of you may have known Irv Tibor, but Irv was at San Diego State at the time, and he suggested that I explore a career in social work. I did. I came to the USC School of Social Work in 1958, and that's what launched the next 40 years of my career. I've often thought how fortunate I was to cross paths with Irv, because social work was probably the only profession in which I could both pursue my passions and have a satisfying career at the same time. Over 50 years later, the problems that troubled me as a young man are still very much with us. But no one should lose sight of the enormous progress that's been made, or fail to recognize the important role that social work has played in this development. While much work remains to be done compared to 50 years ago, people today who are hungry have access to food stamps. The mentally ill get care in the community, not in hospital warehouses. Children can be protected against physical and sexual abuse. Women, sexual, and racial minorities have rights and opportunities that were unknown, unheard of 50 years ago. I am grateful to have been a participant in that 50-year struggle. Today, the social contract is under assault, and the headwinds of radical conservatism pose a challenge that threatens to turn back the tide of progress. But sooner or later, this society will come to understand that the arc of history bends toward freedom and equality. That in an interdependent world, we can only be successful if everyone has a stake in our economy and everyone has the opportunity to realize their potential. Bringing this vision to fruition is the challenge of a coming generation of social workers. Thank you.
Our final inductee for 2012, Ann Shaw, will be introduced by Ellen Dunbar. She's a professor of Marriott, California State University at Stanislaus. Ellen, I'll ask you to come up.
I first heard about Ann Shaw in the 60s. A friend said, you really have to meet this marvelous woman. She integrated the Y. I don't know how much of a role she played in integrating the Y, but I'm sure she was a part of it. Her work, the Y, was just one of her many accomplishments. She became part of California history in 1975 when appointed by Governor Jerry Brown as the first woman and the first African American to serve on the California Commission on Judicial Performance. She served she served as chairman of the board of Founders Savings and Loan Association located in Los Angeles, president of the Wolfendale Club of Los Angeles, and vice president of the Los Angeles Urban League. She served as a board member of the California Community Foundation, the Joint State Task Force on the Family, and the Board of Visitors at the UCLA School of Medicine. She was a member of the Board of Trustees of the University of Redlands. That was her alma mater. Now, she reported that when she went to serve as that Board of Trustees, that she asked her husband if he would go with me to a weekend retreat of the trustees. He said, Anne, I've tried to back you up on everything you've tried to do, but do you really expect me to spend the weekend walking around that campus with 32 white women? I reminded him, she said, that I had gone to a number of things without a great deal of desire in order to be a spouse for him. He thought it over, and he did go with me. Anne was secretary of the California Medical Center Foundation Board, a board member of the Cathedral Corporation of the Episcopal Church, and a member of the USC School of Social Work Board of Counselors. She was the first black president of the Los Angeles YWCA. She also served as member of the YWCA National Board and the YWCA National World Service Council, all levels. As president of the Los Angeles Y, Anne was involved with the establishing and operating of the Women's Job Corps here in Los Angeles, an experience that later inspired her to return to school for a second master's, an MSW. She said the professionals did not seem to accept her aging Master of Life degree. Following an experience of leadership in the development of the Drew Medical Center, Anne became the first black woman on the UCLA Medical Board. She saw this as a way to make sure that minorities had at least someone on that board who would work to make sure that they received the same benefits as others. Anne was a member of the Key Council of the African American Museum, the Women's Council of the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce, and the District Attorney's Advisory Council. She has held leadership positions with the Church Women United, the Salvation Army, the American Red Cross, and the Charles Drew Medical Center. This is an amazing woman. She frequently met resistance as a woman and as an African American woman. For just one example, and there would be hundreds, I'm sure, in 1987, she resigned as chairman of a board of a savings and loan. She said they restructured the board to place a man as chairman, offering her another position. She knew they did not want a woman as president. She said it's extremely important to be aware of the fact that there are tremendous obstacles to being on a board. Minority women are often assigned to insignificant committees. Invariably, the finance committee will be dominated by men. She also faced criticism sometimes in the African American community, particularly over issues, in one example, issues involved at the Drew Medical Center. She understood the opposition, but she held to her assessment of what would work best for the community. She said, I found that a goal of finding women and African Americans to serve on boards extremely important. It's where goals and policies are set and decisions made. And having a representative on the board is educating and informing that can also influence what the other people think and say. Where did all this drive and strength come from? Anne credited her mother's example, saying, I grew up with the understanding that I was responsible not only for opening doors, but for putting my foot in the door and holding it wide open for others to pass through. Anne has certainly done that and more. Anne's daughter, Rebecca Shaw, is here to accept this award.
Good evening. I have a speech here, but I just have to say one thing. It's very true that my mother did open doors, because she used to take me, I'm the youngest of the family, and she used to take me to the meetings to let people know who she was, because she's such a very fair-skinned woman. I had to say that. But I wanted to say my name is Rebecca Ann Shaw, and I am the youngest of Ann Shaw. And here with me is Robin White, her granddaughter, and whom we are very honored to be here to accept this award from my mother for the Social Work Hall of Distinction. I'd like to tell you all, or rather, I'd like to let you all know, my mother is doing very well and wanted definitely to attend. However, she is 90 years old, and on November 21st of next month, she'll be 91, and she was unable to make this trip. We thought it would be a little bit too much for her. But please believe me, she wanted to be here, and she still is a tough lady. She is. We have to get her out of the house every day, or at least every other day. She's got to go. We would like to thank the California Social Work Hall of Distinction Committee and all the social work leaders who knew her, who loved her, and understood all her work and efforts, contributions, and every door she tried and did open and accomplish to the University of Southern California, USC, social work program, including my sister Valerie Lynn Shaw, who is also a graduate and a professor at the university now. I also followed her footsteps and finished and graduated from the University of Redlands. Along with my mother, our family humbly appreciates this honor and will cherish this award and know that all her good work, deeds, and endeavors has placed her in this highest hall of distinction with the California Social Welfare Archives. Thank you, and we are truly honored.
Capturing history, bringing it alive, making it meaningful, giving it the breath of inspiration. That's what we've been doing here tonight. Achievements of our newest members in the Hall of Distinction is overcoming the challenges of their times are literally awesome. They educate, they inspire, and give us hope for resolution of problems in our own time. That is what we are about, the Hall of Distinction. The California Social Welfare Archives. We capture the stories, archive the materials, record the struggles, and illuminate the solutions to problems that continue to resurface in different guises over time. We're deeply grateful to our honorees this evening and for their leadership and their commitment to social work that continues to inspire across generations. And for making this event come alive, we also want to thank Colleen Friend, our Hall of Distinction Chair, and all of the committee members and everyone who's contributed to this event tonight. And a big thank you to all of the family and friends of the newest members of our Hall of Distinction, as well as all of the supporters of the Hall. Work on the induction class for the nominees of the Hall for the year 2013 begin immediately. So we are encouraging you to take an active role in that process. And we will be meeting again in October of 2013 in Northern California and hope to see all of you at that time. Thank you so much for your participation tonight.